presentation.
Reporting.
Okay.
I saw all his numbers and stuff that we
Yeah.
had been put in.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the January 29th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, so roll call votes will be required. We have two of our members attending remotely. And so as required by Massachusetts general law, this is to formally advise that is required by Massachusetts general laws, chapters 30A, sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Finance Committee will hold a public meeting on Wednesday, January 29th at 6 p.m. in Conference Room A. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative access provided below. I don't see anybody attending from the public online, but we do have a member of the public attending in person.
We do have Tom.
Oh, and Tom, thank you for joining tonight. Tom Pendleton is in the room with us. Tom has put his hand up to be a volunteer for the town. And he and I have been talking about some of the challenges the town has faced. We're going to get together again for coffee tomorrow morning. And when he found out what the topics were tonight, he said he wanted to come. Tom, would you like to make any?
No, thank you, not right now.
Mr. Nicanella, would you like to make any comment? Just put your hand up if you would like to. I'll assume that you're just going to listen in tonight. That closes public comment. We do not have any transfers in the queue at this point.
We do, but next week.
Next week. Okay. So we'd like to move directly
I
to,
do roll call.
oh, I do need a roll call to establish quorum. Thank you for that. John?
Here.
Nate?
Here.
George?
Here.
Raphael? Raphael?
Sorry, I was on mute here.
Yeah. Alyssa?
Here.
Bob? Here. I am here as well. We do have a quorum. Thank you for reminding me of that. So we didn't get 100% of the people with a chance to see your recorded message.
Sure.
But everybody did receive a copy of your presentation in there and have had a chance to look at it. But perhaps we could lead this off with you walking us through the state of the request for.
Do you want me to share the presentation?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Boy, you are good.
Don't say anything just yet.
Don't.
Um,
Also, earlier this evening, the chief had shared his latest ambulance billing data with me, and I did put that into a handy dandy graph.
Yeah, I saw it. I did see it. You're quick.
I am quick.
Okay.
Right up top.
Our
there.
presentation,
Above it.
Oh, thank you. Good eye.
the only one that looked different.
And
Um,
then you.
All right,
share
yeah.
that.
well, can you guys see it on the, on your, George, can you see this presentation?
No, I cannot.
So I think you gotta at the top, hit stop share.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
You're
right,
sharing your Zoom browser screen.
now do your green at the bottom, green button share. And do fire president.
Oh, there we go. Now you can see it?
Hey, click that up,
Yeah.
down the bottom, it says share at the very
Stay
bottom.
at the bottom.
Very.
Oh, okay. Haven't done this
And
in a
now
while.
now you're sharing.
All right, now.
There we go. We got it.
Excellent.
Too many PowerPoints at work.
Thank you. And then I can do the
Do the
slideshow.
slideshow.
Well, I don't know why.
think from beginning there on the.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
See, together.
This is a bad group of people to put it.
Well, I'm getting there. I mean,
You did
it's
it,
not
you
a
did it.
total catastrophe.
That's all that matters. Got there. All right, I'll go quick, just because I think most of you like have seen it, at least on paper. So, just the highlights. I won't try to read all the slides here, but I'm basically following up on a fiscal 2025 agreement or plan that we had with the select board. And if you recall, I had asked for 8 firefighters in that point. They agreed, but they decided to split it between 2 years. So this is phase 2 of that request, basically for an additional 4. As we, highlight the same concerns that I've been highlighting since I started. A steady increase in call volume over the last 20 years, over 65% probably at this point in the last 20 years of call volume, 3% last year. We're trying to address a lot of concerns at the same time, obviously staffing being one of them, but staffing, lack of correct staffing also leads to morale issues, burnout, injuries, and all the other things, retention with employees and trying to compete with other fire departments at this point. So, and then the model that the Yarmouth Fire Department, a lot of Cape departments had used was using callback, using guys on their days off to come back in, staff apparatus. The workforce has changed dramatically. You're not getting people back. We'll have major incidents and get 1 or 2 people back to the station in the middle of the night. They're just, it's not there anymore. I think there's other demands, either other employment, whether it be family, whether it just be a change in lifestyle. There's just, that doesn't exist anymore. And it's not a reliable option for us to run our fire department. So, what that does is have an effect on our ability to respond to subsequent calls. So we do get a lot of concurrent calls, which I'll talk about later, but, our current staffing, what it leads to is a delay, either getting responses from the hospital, trying to get crews together from ambulances that are there already, or calling for mutual aid, or having a staff person like myself respond to a call and wait for an ambulance to come from town. I wanted to just highlight, we've done a lot as a town, has done a lot of analysis using outside consultants to talk about and look at our department. Back to 2002, they had a consulting group come in. What that led to was an override in 2003, where they opened Station 3. Station 3 had been a call station until that point. So they hired 12 firefighters and opened Station 3 full time. At that point, they recommended a minimum staffing at our headquarters station of 6. Which up until last year was still at 5. We just moved that up to 6 last year, even though it had been recommended as far back as 2002. And at that point, they had also made a recommendation to add to our command staff. As the department grows, a span of control is the concept where you can only control so many, people at once effectively. And as we increase the workforce, obviously there's more training requirements, certification requirements, and everything else that goes along with that. In 2011, the department went through a strategic plan process that included the select board and other members of the community, based on call volume and geographic challenges, recommended 18 per shift, which was an increase from, I think at that point, they were 14, right? So they were at 14. So they wanted to increase 4 per shift. So it would have been an increase of 16 firefighters at that point. They also recommended putting the shift commander, getting him off of the piece, because currently our captain or lieutenant who's in charge of the entire 3 stations, typically, like currently right now, is at a fire in Hyannis. So you have nobody in town right now to supervise the other stations or other calls that are going on. So it literally happens on a daily basis. Right now, he's at a fire in Hyannis and won't be back for hours. So you're playing kind of a gamble to see who's going to be able to come in and fill that role. So basically what that does is it makes it fall on me or whatever and have to listen and know what's going on. They had also recommended a training officer. Like I said, the requirements increase as the department grows, and a second deputy chief to manage administrative tasks. It also recommended a supervisor in dispatch, but obviously we're moving in a different direction with dispatch, with the regional dispatch center. In 2018, there was a subsequent study done Again, a lot of the same things are highlighted, a training officer, a restructure of the command staff. They did recommend some day positions to offset daytime call surges. We're definitely busier in the 12 hours between 8 AM and 8 PM. But they recommended doing that once we got to the level of 18 per shift because we were still behind at that point. And we'll talk about concurrence of calls and how we were not meeting response times. Last year, we did another strategic planning analysis with an outside consultant. Talked about a lot of things, but I wanted to highlight was the same issues that led to my request this year of an increase in our development of our leadership and administration, changing our restructuring our organization at the top of the administration, and focusing on trying to develop from within our professional and career development and succession plan, which, as I'm sure you guys all remember, was a highlight of the issue when they were actually looking to replace last chief, is that they weren't prepared with anybody decided to take on that role. So that's my goal, is to have multiple people ready to go when it's my time to go. See when that might be.
As he watches, making sure that there's nothing blowing up.
All right, so just from a financial strategy standpoint, what I did wanted to mention is that we have been offsetting our wages using ambulance receipts. The ambulance generates a revenue close to $2.8 million per year, and that's pretty steady over the last 20+ years. The amount that we've taken from that account has increased over time to offset the increases in staffing and other parts of our budget. Right now, as of last year, there's $2 million coming out of the ambulance fund every year. The issue with that is that starts to leave less money for capital purchases, because the fire department has very rarely had to come to the town to buy fire engines, ambulances, cars. All their vehicles typically come out of that account. As those prices increase dramatically and we take money out of that account, now we're at the point where we need to borrow to fulfill those replacement schedules. We have had some ambulance fee increases. The last was in, I think, 2023. And well, also the conversation there is the demographic. The majority of our patient transports are not private pay or insurance. They are Medicare. And we are limited in how much we can charge on those ambulance calls. So, for example, in a wealthier community that has a higher demographic of insurance, people paying with insurance, they're actually doing less ambulance calls, but making more money in ambulance receipts because they're getting 2 or 3 times the amount per ambulance call in receipts. Calls.
Could I ask a question there?
Sure.
Does that change at all in the summer when you see an uptick in tourists, or no?
Not really, not enough to make a significant increase, but yeah, I mean, we do get some, probably a little bit uptick, but not much.
Okay.
Just for the note taker, that was Alyssa Mullen asking a question about the summer.
Okay,
No, it's just to help her.
sure. I put this slide, the next bullet point, the select board had asked about overtime funding and how that has gone down, or if we've made any movement with that. Over the 10-year period, the overtime budget has actually decreased from a request of 1.1 million down to 900,000, which, that's a couple $100,000. But if you also think about during those 10 years, they've had COLA increases. They've had a lot of other things that have affected, every time somebody takes overtime, whether it be a shift or a callback, it's actually a bigger chunk of that money as their rates go up over time. So, even level funding from last year to this year is basically a decrease in that request. And that last override, like I mentioned, was in 2002, was for 980,000, and that was to staff Station 3 with 12 new firefighters. So we have made some increases in staffing. I said from 2012 we were at 14 per shift. There was a 7-year gap between 2012 and 2019 where we had no increases in staffing. In 2019, we moved up to 15 per shift, and that was accomplished through a federal grant called SAFER, which basically offsets salaries over a 3 or 5 year period, and then over time, the town takes on the rest of that expense. Then we went 5 years without an increase in staffing. And in the last 2 years, we've added one per year. So 2024, we went to 16, 2025, we went to 17. And the request this year is to get to 18 per shift, which, as you remember, is what was recommended back 2018. So we're catching up to where, I'm sorry, 2011, I apologize, yes. So we're trying, but we're making up some ground here. Concurrent calls for service are obviously multiple calls at the same time. And only 25% of our calls, or 1 out of every 4, obviously occurs as a single incident. The rest of our calls are, it's actually amazing. You look at my phone right now, it's all the notifications of multiple calls all at the same time. So what that does, obviously, is leaves nobody at the station, or we're waiting for somebody to come in from home to staff the next call. As if you've seen, we're averaging 22 calls a day. It's almost a call an hour, so it's basically a guarantee. If you come in, you're gonna be here to go on a sure, go ahead.
Mr.
If you have an ambulance call to the hospital, how long does it take to get the ambulance back to the station?
An hour on average,
An hour?
an hour.
Okay.
Except in the summer.
In the summer, it can be longer.
No.
They have what they call haul times, or I forgot what they call them, but basically, you know, sometimes you'll get there
Yeah.
even with a high priority or high acuity patient, and there literally is nowhere to put that patient.
Yeah.
And that patient stays on the ambulance stretcher. They start to treat them. We've gone to the cath lab with patients like that,
Yeah.
and then we're stuck. They can't take that patient off and take another call.
So minimum, it's an hour before that ambulance gets back into service.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely a concern, and they are responding. They're very good.
Yeah.
If they hear themselves getting busy, they'll put together a crew and get back in town. But
Yeah.
you're looking at an hour before that ambulance comes. Awesome. So by getting to 18, what we're trying to facilitate is increasing that daily staffing to include that shift commander, so to get him off of that piece. So right now you'd have somebody in the station. Contractually, by the collective bargaining agreement, they're allowed 3 people off on vacation at a time. We average consistently over the last 20 years of 1 line of duty injury per shift at a time. We usually have at least 3 or 4 out on long-term injury, whether it be back, shoulder, whatever it might be. And then that also allows us to have, you know, people using accruals, whether it be sick time, personal time, or out for to meet some kind of training objective. So what we'd be distributing, you'd have 13 for start of shift. So you could go down to 13. You'd have the captain or the shift commander, 6 firefighters at headquarters, and then 3 at each of the outlying stations, an officer and 2 firefighters. And then the next objective is the what we've been talking about in all of these studies is a restructuring of our command staff. Right now, we have 1 person, 1 lieutenant, who is the EMS/training officer or supervisor. So he's doing the role of the EMS officer, which most departments and by most standards is 1 person that handles that role, especially with the size of our department, where we almost have 80 EMTs and paramedics. They require in a significant amount of yearly training to keep their certifications up. The required hours, it's like 60 hours for paramedics, 40 hours for the EMTs. They have to provide all that training and make sure that it's all tracked, done everything. They're doing all their QA/QI. They are following all the regulatory requirements, doing ambulance inspections. They're also the infectious disease control officers. So our EMTs and paramedics are exposed almost daily to whether it be COVID or whether it be bloodborne pathogens or anything else. So they have to track all of that if someone gets exposed and follow up and make sure people are getting the correct care. Trying to do some community education, but it's harder and harder to get done. And trying to do training, fire training. So they provide an annual fire training plan. We do have NFPAs are kind of our governing organization that tells us how much training we're supposed to do in every competency, whether it be ladders, hoses, breathing apparatus, whatever it might be. So we try to meet those objectives. He provides that plan, but then it's pretty much left to the shift captains or the shift lieutenants to try to get that training done, because there's nobody there to make sure that it's followed through with or done. And then you're adding 22 calls a day to these guys to try to squeeze in a couple hours of training. It's a lot. So if you don't mind, move to the next one, but what we're looking to do is add what is very common in departments our size, which would be have a chief, an assistant chief, and a deputy chief. And what that would allow is the EMS officer to be a sole role of the EMS officer and not have to take on the training duties as well. The assistant chief could take on other roles. Right now, we have 2 fire prevention officers that are basically left unsupervised because of the role of the current deputy chief. He has too much of other duties to do. And because they work day staff positions, you know, and I have to walk by their office on a daily basis, they get a lot of my ancillary work. Cause hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do this and do this, cause they're there, you know, so, and they're awesome about it, they're great about it, but they're getting bogged down with administrative level work that really isn't in their job description. And it's too hard to follow up with, and they don't carry the rank and everything else to follow through with what they're supposed to do. So the goal would be to have the assistant chief take on the role that the deputy should be doing now. And then the deputy chief could do training and emergency preparedness, actually do some individual training plans for individuals and get people up to speed, follow through with our strategic goals of getting our succession planning in order and get our younger members ready to take on higher roles as they move up. And that's basically what it is. Oh, I lost that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is actually the key slide.
This is the important one. This is the important one. So this is a breakdown of the override that was proposed at that select board meeting. The firefighter salaries being the top line and the biggest piece. The assistant chief, there would be the salary for that position. And then the biggest component of requests over time is that in order to keep these requests low, the previous fire chiefs have not included the other ancillary expenses that come with hiring new people, and that's the physicals, background checks, and uniforms and all this stuff. And we've kind of absorbed it in the budget, which just leads to us decreasing our current programs and the things that we're trying to accomplish. So with Jennifer's help, we just included it in there to make sure that we're giving it an accurate cost of what it's going to be to hire these people, and we can continue moving forward instead of taking a step back every time we try to accomplish another goal.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Think at the select board meeting, like escape on your keyboard.
It should close. No? Click in the, click anywhere in the PowerPoint. No, hit escape. Hmm.
Yeah, we go. So at the select board meeting, the question
Thank you.
the chair of the select board asked about the way that when you send out a fire apparatus, you know, why are there 3 people at the station? And I thought it was useful, you know, for you to explain that to the public.
Sure.
But you might want to just take a minute. I don't know if everybody else heard that conversation, but I think it's worthwhile to repeat.
Sure. So we try to staff every ambulance with 3 personnel. Typically on higher acuity calls, it's 2 paramedics and 1 EMT. You know, the state of emergency medicine and what we're doing at this point is, you know, the amount of equipment we're required to walk in with, no matter what the call is significant. We're carrying in cardiac monitors, our med boxes, all our BLS equipment. We're starting care in the home. We're doing our evaluation and typically starting IVs, giving meds, doing cardiac monitoring. And then obviously a lot of our injuries are based on moving people. It is significantly important to point out that most people, you know, it's hard to move someone who's incapacitated, whether from the 2nd floor, from a basement, from a bedroom. It's a lot of moving, shifting, lifting somebody, and once it's hard to get them out. So a lot of the ambulances, other communities will send a fire engine and an ambulance in order to make that movement easier. And typical here, we kind of avoid doing that by putting 3 people on the ambulance and allowing them to do that. So, and then en route to the hospital, you have 2 in the back, 1 driving, obviously, and then you can continue with patient care. You have one person calling the hospital, giving an update as to what they're bringing in, giving an update on the care that was given. And then you have somebody who's assigned to that patient during that transport to do continue doing everything they need.
I mean, it's, anytime you're staffing a 24/7 operation, the minimum per role is 6. So you multiply these things out. So you need 6 people doing dispatch. You need, you know, 6 people doing every firefighter role that's in every station. It adds up really fast. So
Right. And obviously, we're just talking on the medical side, but you know,
we can do run fires.
we do go fires, and we have had a lot of fires in the last year. And the minimum for a single family home, a fire in a bedroom, we're talking 14 people to do that safely and effectively. And it's not 14 people minimum to respond. It's 14 people within a certain amount of time. You know, the way fires are burning now, everything is burning faster, hotter. You need to get there faster and sooner in order to actually be effective if somebody is inside that. So those are the minimums we're trying to meet. When you have, you know, 70-something% of the time, 2 or 3 ambulances out of the station, even if you have 14 people working, you're actually down to 6 or 7 because the other guys are not available to respond. So typically, you know, any building fire that we get, we're the first thing we're doing is looking to see who's actually in the station, who's going to be able to go. So we're relying a lot on mutual aid partners to come in to staff those roles, to get to those minimums that are, you know, for the safety of the people in these homes and for the firefighters themselves.
The other thing that we had seen, and I did send out the chart that showed the trends in billing for the ambulances. And again, those are very positive trends. We have been flatlined at about 4,000 billable calls. And then over the last 3 years, it's been going up at a nice steady rate. Is there anything that contributes to that? Is it or we're just getting better at our bookkeeping? Or?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably a more of from a liability perspective of trying not to let people refuse once they've called 911. Because that's a lot of things. Sometimes people will call and they'll say, "Oh, can you give me an IV? Can you check me out? Can you do this?" And a lot of that is really been pushed on us that it's not appropriate for us. We're there to provide the best care we can, but the end result should be them being evaluated at the hospital with a medical doctor to make that decision or the determination.
Last year, we also spent a fair amount of time looking at the source cause analysis of where the calls were coming from. Do we have any updates on that?
I wasn't able to get it to you, but pretty much exactly in line.
So we're still seeing about 1/3 of the calls coming from senior living
Yes.
facilities. Okay.
Chief, can I ask, how do you arrive at the cost of an ambulance? You know, how much it costs to take a person from home to the
Fully loaded.
hospital?
Sure. So, you know, it's interesting you say that because we're actually in the middle of a giant Medicare study where they want to look at that and decide whether or not we're billing that appropriately. But basically what they look at is the cost of the ambulance itself, all the equipment that's on it, the 2 or 3 people that are on that ambulance, and then dividing that by the amount of calls that it goes on throughout the year. And it's significant. And certainly the receipts that we're getting from the insurance company or Medicare offsets that amount some, but it's certainly not enough to offset it completely.
You know, if I remember when you took me in 21, the ambulance was like $2,100.
The
Yeah.
bill, yes.
That was because my insurance company picked up the full ride.
Yeah.
You know, Medicare picked up something, then my insurance company picked up the rest. But if the people don't have that secondary insurance, he only gets Medicare money, which is what, $400 or $500. So he's down roughly $1,500.
That's why, because what you told us that
Yeah.
before, and that's why I was trying to figure out
Yeah,
how you compute
yeah.
how much it costs.
I would like to recognize one of our committee members, Raphael.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
I've got a question out of just sheer ignorance. Is there such a thing as privatized EMS ambulance services on the Cape in Massachusetts or in the region?
Not in our region, but there certainly is private ambulance companies that do offer ambulance service. The thought there obviously has been, you're splitting between two services, between fire and EMS. What that brings, typically, and honestly, is a lower level of care. You have people that are trained to a lesser standard. You have people with no ties to the community. You have people coming in from wherever. And then what it comes down to is that they're running a business. So what they're going to do is typically put two people in an ambulance and stage them somewhere in town. They're not going to be, assigned to Yarmouth, for example. They're going to be in an area and they're going to be doing medical transports from the hospital back to patients' homes. And they're doing kind of dual role, dual service, where if they're available, they'll take a call. If they're not, then they'll send one from another area. Certainly they do it. A lot of the more urban communities or cities run private ambulance, but that's mostly because the fire department is also much busier with fire duty. So this allows us to have, everybody who's trained to do both.
Thank you.
Mr. I'd like to recognize Mr. Perkins.
Yeah, Chief, I've got a couple of questions and I'm not looking for specific answers, but I like to have us at least consider these. First of all, you talked about staffing. Is money going to be enough?
Is the money going to be enough? The money's going to be enough to get us to this level of staffing.
All right. I mean, you seem to be indicating that, you were having a difficult time recruiting no matter what. People just don't want to take the risk or whatever. I don't know.
Sure.
I heard that, so I just raised that question.
No, I think that's obviously related, but kind of outside of the realm of what I'm presenting tonight. We are in the middle of a collective bargaining process, and we're working to, meet those goals as well with retention and recruitment through those goals.
A second question with respect to training. Given the importance of training, how can one training officer be essentially responsible for all of the skills that have to be imparted to the entire staff? Is that sufficient, or are we just naming somebody who's responsible but not solving the problem of training the staff?
No, I think you're doing both, honestly, because what we're doing now is, like I said, the current EMS/training officer isn't available to actually go out and provide this training or supervise the training. So if you had somebody who had that role in its entirety, he or she could set up say, today we're going to go do ice rescue, for example, and he could go set up the drill and then move the companies from the different 3 stations through that drill. And you're making sure that everybody's doing it to his standard consistently and the same, versus now they get a training plan, they hand it to the captain, and if they can pull it off during the day, they go. And, Captain A is going to do it one way, Captain B is going to do it another way, and Captain C is going to do it, a third way. So it really increases the standardization of how the training is delivered and facilitated.
Sounds like a teacher's lesson plan.
Well, I'm just curious. Another one. This sort of goes between the two basic functions, fighting fires and getting people to healthcare and treating them in the intervening time. Is there an argument to separating the two services so that we have a fire department and an EMT department instead of sticking both very important functions in one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is an argument for it. It's whether or not, I think it's more of a commitment of the community to decide how they want to do it. It's been studied here in this town in the time that, in the 20 plus years that I've lived here, I know that these discussions have happened. And what basically it comes down to is the town deciding that this is a higher level of service and a higher level of care, and allowing your firefighters and EMTs to do both roles and being trained in both, so that you're not, I think separating the two really all it does is create a whole nother set of problems and concerns, of how you run both departments. Then you're gonna need management for both sides. You're gonna need different training for both sides. And then a lot of the times our firefighters, you know, if we run out of ambulances, you know, if we have 5 or 6 ambulances going at the same time, we have fire engines going to medical calls, and they're providing both services, and they're allowed to break from one to go to the next call. I think the way we're running it, really does work and provides the best level of care for our community.
I'm not making an argument one way or the other. I wanted your wisdom on this, but given the example you've given me, certainly we can be in a position where we can send firefighters to do the EMT work, given that they're trained, but we can't send an EMT vehicle to a fire and to be very effective.
Yes, very much so.
All
Correct.
right. Another thing, this is more of a comment than a question, but I think we have a suspicion, and we need to verify this with considerable more data, but there's a reason why many of the facilities that are being called for our ambulances are located very close to the hospital. One wonders whether that's not being reflected in either the pilots that these not-for-profits are being asked to pay, or if they are for-profit, you know, whether their tax rate reflects this additional service that their unique business is demanding of the town. So
Right.
that's just a comment, not.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so Mr. Anderson.
So kind of a follow-up to George's question about, is the money enough, right? So it took us, if my years are right, it took us 15 years to get to the staffing of 18. Right? 2011 was the original recommendation, right? So do you have any sense of like what year 27 looks like, 28? I mean, I know you can only, but are we gonna be short in fiscal year 27 and 28?
I think if the town continues to, you know, if the run volume continues in the same trajectory that it is now, we're gonna need to increase our staffing again. And you know, and that's something that we do have money in this year's annual town meeting to do an analysis of projected growth for the town. Obviously, we have sewer work coming to town, which is gonna, you know, make an impact to the development of Route 28 and everything else, and what that does. Matikes is talking about housing, you know, all of these things have not, my opinion is that these have not been thought about when it comes to public safety and the effect that it has on public safety, because it's obviously driven our calls over time.
Do you think that affects the, just like firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, or is that a change, like, is that another future change of the administration?
I think the growth mostly will come on the floor
Floor.
for fire and paramedics, yes.
George, do you have your TV on in the background?
Oh, yeah, let me cut the.
Okay, the other question was asked at the select board meeting was whether the override, the amount of the override was included in the budget that is being asked for from the general ledger. And you had a discussion about that with the select board on that. And Jennifer, maybe you could sort of update us on that.
Yes, so the what's incorporated into the budget is the salaries, and that's really it. Because what I did is I didn't put the money in the health insurance, and I didn't put money in the retirement assessment, and so I pulled out from the operating too. And the reason why I did that is the way I envision this would be a separate town meeting warrant article, because you don't want to put it all together, and then if the override doesn't pass, then the whole budget doesn't pass. You know, you kind of have to extrapolate it out. So what I'll do is I'll put it into, but I wanted to show the salaries. And so what I'll do is I'll take it out of the budget, the salary portion, and we'll put it in a separate town meeting warrant.
So the number that you see here on this page will change down, and then it'll be funded from the override.
Right.
And then get added back.
So it's basically like that 400
The 600?
Yeah, 600.
No, the 400
400,
salaries, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the salaries will come out, everything else, exactly.
471.
Yeah.
So with that, all of that background information,
Could I ask one more question?
Alyssa, please.
I just wanted to double click into something you said earlier about community outreach and how that, you mentioned that that was in your current staffing, that was a struggle to keep that program up.
Yes, definitely.
In your opinion, like, if you had a more robust community outreach, would that impact preventative health and potentially, I don't know if we have data on this, I'm sure we could find
Yeah,
it.
100%. And if you see on that slide, one of the things that by removing training from the current EMS training officer's role, one of the things that I'd like to add back to his role would be, community paramedicine or what they call managed integrated health, which would allow an outreach for him to get out, or I say him because it's obviously currently filled by my role. He could get out, and he's doing some of that right now. We're very lucky with the position that's in it. He's actually an RN as well, and does a lot of work with the VNA. So he has all these great connections when we run into, there's places, I know residents that we'll have stretches where they're calling 2 or 3 times a day, whether it be for an assist or whatever it might be. And now we have somebody with those connections who can go, he'll actually go to the home, talk to him, set them up with resources, whether it be elder care or anything, other kind of VNA types of work. And yes, I think it'll be great to expand that program.
Okay, and potentially see an impact in number of volume.
Yes, and calls,
Volume
yeah,
calls.
exactly.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, another thing would be working with the senior living facilities on what they're doing. Raphael, yes, sir.
Two quick ones. Chief, how do the salaries, the firemen's salaries compare across the Cape? Are you having other towns, other departments picking your pocket, so to speak?
Yeah, it's been a consistent problem for the last 20+ years. We have 2 things that are affecting, obviously we're probably the busiest by staffing of department on the Cape. Falmouth does some more calls, but their staffing is higher than ours. The piece there, we're not competitive when it comes to health insurance split compared to most departments. I apologize to departments that are similar to us operationally and statistically in call volume. We do compete. I know we've talked about before with other fire departments that aren't, subjected to the same restrictions we are with 2.5. But salaries we're pretty much average. We are low. We've recognized that our paramedic salaries are definitely in need of increasing in order to remain competitive. And then the other piece that we've identified is that it's taking the way our contract is set up, or taking much longer to get to the top steps as in a comparison to other departments. So we're trying to work on all those things.
And that's partly what the town administrator and the HR director work on all the time.
Okay, good. Chief, where are we with the retention bonus, sign-on bonus that was discussed a month or 2 ago? With the police chief?
We're trying to move forward. We're working with HR to find a way to our bargaining unit has not been as accepting as the police department was in implementing that. So we're trying to find a way around it, basically.
So what was the crowd's temperature, so to speak? Was it low? Was it too little? Was it high? Was it average? How was the amount itself received? Because a couple of us talked internally in the finance committee, and our opinion, again, based on maybe jaded from the private sector, was that it was low. What was the temperature of the audience as they received the amount?
As far as the bargaining unit or
the bonus amount itself, I think it was it 5,000?
Yeah, I mean, it's lower than what other departments are offering. I think the other departments that are doing it currently are in the $7,500 range.
Right.
So it is lower, but I think it's seen as at least a step in the right direction.
To pilot it. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, the other thing I recall is the number of other departments which have vacancies. I mean, it's big numbers across the Cape. I think part of the P-Town because they had privatized their EMT and they took it back in because of the exact problems that the chief was talking about. So I think we're trying to add like 20 people. I mean, that's just a big number.
Yeah, the growth is not unique to Yarmouth. Obviously, we're growing, I think, faster than the other communities, but, Harwich is increasing their staff. Orleans is increasing their staff. Hyannis has increased their staff. A lot of our neighbors are seeing the same trends and, we used to get 150, 100, 200 applicants for a fire job. We're getting 10 or 15. And other departments are seeing the same thing. It used to be a super, super competitive
Yeah.
job market. And now we'll do a whole interview process. We'll talk to somebody, they'll sound excited. And then when you offer them a job, they'll say, okay, what do you pay compared to to Department A, B, or C, or what's your vacation time, or what's this and that? Like, I basically am selling these jobs to these people, where before it was the opposite, where you'd be able to choose.
Chief, can I just ask a question
Mr.
regarding the station on Main Street? I remember there was some discussion about
Yarmouthport?
a new station or some renovation of.
Sure.
That station.
The Old Main Street or?
Yeah, Old Main,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's certainly on my radar.
It's gotta be.
We just completed what's called the facilities, the FCA, I don't know what it stood for, but we just had an analysis from an outside company. We have an enormous amount of need when it comes to those two, both that station and Station 2.
Which is Yarmouthport.
It was Yarmouthport. It's certainly something that I need to talk to the assistant town administrator about, because I don't know how much money is worth putting into a station that we've completely outgrown and isn't meeting our current needs.
Old Main must be awfully old. I mean,
It's from the 40s. The original building dates back to the
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah. He isn't even able to house some of the equipment that you need to
No,
house
we
there.
don't fit, and
They don't fit
even
in.
even honestly, this is a challenge. Like getting more people.
yeah.
Nowhere to go.
We don't have anywhere to go. We're making stuff. We don't have meeting rooms. We're not ADA compliant. There's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But I think the role of the fire department obviously is first and foremost to respond to emergencies. So we want to have enough people to do that, and then I'll keep coming back.
Right. And then the supplemental information we looked at last year with the travel time analysis said that the stations that we do have though are relatively well positioned in terms of response times and limited amount of overlap. So, of course, that means limited overlap means if somebody's out and it has to come from someplace else, it takes longer.
It takes longer.
Okay, I think I'd like to dive a little bit deeper. So again, as Jennifer said, the data that you see here and the full-time salaries will be reduced in line with the warrant article for the override. Are there any other line items that, Chief, you'd like to point out? And then I'll open it up to the committee if they have any questions.
Sure. No, obviously where you see an increase in any numbers under professional and tech, there again is there's a contractual agreement to run an exam every year. Basically, every other year we run a lieutenant's exam, and then the following year we run a captain's exam. That was agreed to a couple contracts ago and never funded. So we've been, taking money from other parts of the budget in order to accomplish that. An important part of that is the assessment center, where we hire an outside consultant to come in and test our people through this process instead of just doing a written exam. And it leads to a lot, more better vetting. So that's the big increase there. And then ambulance billing fees, as our ambulance runs goes up, so does our billing. So that's just a reflection of that.
Next page.
Next page, repair and maintenance. The top line light item is we have, again, maintenance contracts with 5 ambulances. We have 5 Lucas, which is those automatic CPR devices that we have that have been great for our people and people who are in cardiac arrest, and also our stretchers. And we've had these maintenance contracts that I honestly don't know how they were getting paid for, because we didn't have enough money, and they're it comes to about $17,000. So this year we accomplished it by transferring money out of old articles to pay for those. But obviously that was a one-time fix and we needed to make an increase to that line item in order to pay for those going forward. And protective clothing, again, is just an increase in being able to with newer members. And we've hired, over the last couple of years, we also have contractual obligations to provide them with their dress uniforms and other things that they get after they're here for a period of time, and those aren't cheap.
The FY 25 FTE at 83, as of the end of the year, where were we? In December?
Oh, in December, we were down probably 79. Because in addition to hiring, we lost 4 this year to other departments. And one retirement.
And then the request for 26 is really for flatline at 83, but plus 5
Yes.
when we get to, so it'll be 83 plus 5 be up to 88. Wow.
A lot of people.
I'm going to go around the table in case somebody has some additional concerns, but in addition to what we see here, obviously there's the indirects, which Jennifer referenced, the health insurance, retirement. The other thing that is covered elsewhere is obviously the fuel for the ambulances. If you look at the fuel reports, they go through about $70,000 a year in fuel. And that has been going up in line with the amount of increased activity that they've had, as well as increased rates on diesel. So with that as context, John.
I'm good, thank you.
Nate.
I'm good.
Raphael.
Chief, what's your total vacancy count right now?
One, we just did interviews this week, and so if we count the people we hired this week, we have 1 opening.
Thank you very much. I'm good.
George.
I'm fine.
Alyssa.
I'm okay. Thanks.
Bob.
All set, thank you.
I've talked to them.
And I think it's, and the select board was very effusive about their appreciation for the work the fire department does every day. Certainly, I think our committee would also say the same, because it is just amazing, given the level of activity, and this year, the increased fire activity.
Yes, significant.
So, thank you very much for your time. So thank you for taking.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, discussion of possible provisional votes to recommend the departments that we discussed last week. Inspection services and community development.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Mr.
Good night, Chief.
Thank you.
So let's go, police, was, the recommended amount was in the, total of $9,575,794. Is there any discussion around that, or would I get a motion to,
I'll move to recommend.
move to recommend, okay, let me get this.
I'll second.
Already. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. John?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Raphael?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
Yay.
I am an aye as well. It's 7-0. Inspection services. Now that's the 2 that we talked about, both building and I think the one follow-up that I have, and I'm going to be meeting with the select board chair on Friday. There was one question about the need to potentially have a packaged fee for the inspections for the rental houses now that it's required an annual building inspection as well as a health inspection. And that was the only thing I could recall.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So up first is the building department, which had a request in for $759,198. And I'm going to suggest that we sort of, unless people would have an objection, maybe we'll just do this, the remainders as, and again, we can do them separately, but I'm sort of thinking we could do them as a package potentially. So then the Board of Health, their total was 704,535. The veterans, again, we don't have their estimates yet,
Yeah, not yet.
so we're gonna pass on that one. But do I hear a motion to approve the inspection services, both the Board of Health budget as well as the building department budget? Mr. Nate is gonna say, we're gonna do that.
I'll second.
Alyssa? Any other comments? Hearing none. John?
Aye.
Nate? Raphael?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Carries 7-0. And last but not least, community development, which is still in, they're downstairs tonight doing the long-term planning exercise with the planning board. They have a recommended budget of 609,903, and that was under community development. Does anybody have any objections or concerns? Hearing none, do I hear a motion for a provisional vote to recommend this at town meeting? Anyone?
I'll move it.
Mr. Perkins,
Second.
Raphael. Any other concerns? I mean, obviously Jennifer presented this last week. So I don't know
I couldn't remember who did it. That's why my hesitation there.
Me.
Thank you. Okay, I'm good now.
if, John,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
Raphael,
Aye.
Mr. Perkins,
Aye.
Alyssa,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, 7-0. Which brings us up to date to the finance director's update.
I really don't have an update. I just don't have one.
Okay, you've been busy.
All is well.
All is well. So discussion and possible vote to approve the prior meeting minutes. In your packet, you did have the draft minutes from January 8th, 2025. Would anybody like to make any amendments? Hearing none. Mr. Anderson?
I'll second.
So. Roll call vote. Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Raphael?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. This is like. Okay, so next item is I wanted to give everybody a quick update on what's going on with the school budget, because that's obviously the 50% of our total. So first of all, the formulas that came out, the so-called foundation budgets, as well as the school aid came out, and it was very much in Yarmouth's favor. Unlike, we were concerned that it was going to go down, and virtually every other town on the Cape only went up $75 a student. That was it. We went up 416 per student, total $1.4 million. And that is, 14 million, sorry, it's $14 million, right? Got that right? $14 million. $14 million. No, and it was up
It
one,
went
yeah,
up one-
one-
Are you talking about chapter 70?
chapter 70. So
Chapter 70 went up, net, the state aid went up 1.5 million.
1.5 million to 14 million. Because of that, and because of changes in the way that the minimum town contributions were calculated. So basically, it works out that there's two factors that go into that. One is the wealth factor, which is based on the asset value of the homes, and the other one is the income value. Dennis's share minimum contribution went up 8.4%. And ours went up 6.4%. And then once that was factored in, the net effect is because we share the expenses above that. And it turns out when all is said and done, we were within $30,000 of the estimate that Bob put into the budget.
Pretty good.
There's a little bit of luck in that too, but
So that means we probably won't have we will have a school override or will not?
No,
no.
So then we would only have the fire override.
Right. The other piece of it, which is sort of interesting, and we have not gotten the confirmation from the Cape Cod Tech, so I don't want to put this in the bank yet. But the other thing that happened, and again, this is all foundation regional school stuff, is Cape Cod Tech, their enrollment surged to a record 685. Yarmouth went down by 7 students to 140. And their expenses have been very much in line. So if you do the simple math, you know, that it looks like potentially, I mean, just because of the percentages, because it's all percentages of students, our assessment would probably go down next year.
Yeah.
So on the school thing, it seems at this point that we are in pretty good shape. Now, the flip side of that is obviously, and we'll just start move forward with that. It does have an impact on Dennis because of that 8.4% increase in their minimum contribution. So they are significantly higher than their estimates. And so they're going to be wrestling with that. So I've been doing a lot of deep dive in the data. So I'm going to be, so I'll be working with, I'll be talking with the Dennis Finance Director, or not Finance Director, the Dennis Finance Committee Chair on Thursday. So again, just so that we're all on the same page, but I think the exciting piece of this is that we were all in the room and having a very civil conversation about the data. Also, it was announced at the meeting that the current Director of Finance, David Flynn, has accepted a position in the same role with at New Bedford, which is like 3 times as big. And so they have appointed an interim finance person, John Lewis. Oh, John.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, come on, it's right here. Where was it? Ferris, John Ferris. And so he will be taking over. David is leaving on February 7th. And so that will, so we'll have an opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper on that in the upcoming weeks.
Where's Mr. Ferris coming from?
He's an interim, so he's out of Hingham. He is not out of a regional school district. Again, he is intended to, because this is a significant job, so they are going to do a full-blown search.
So he's just a interim part-time interim.
Yeah, let me just say that he's been a school business manager for a number of years.
Okay.
So he does, probably
I
he
mean,
does some work helping out districts. So he does have an extensive resume, understands the formula, understands state aid and, the net school spending. And understands all the important aspects of the budget, so you'll be in good hands with him.
Yeah. Yeah, he did the long version of his background and I just, but it
It's
is
like-
good.
It's like here on the Cape for quite a while, we had town managers flopping every place, you know.
Yeah.
We had like temporary town managers.
So the upcoming key items on February 3rd, the school committee will hold a public hearing on the budget where members of the public will be invited to opine on the budget. The other thing that was referenced at the meeting was in order to help address some of the unhoused population issues that we have on the Cape. Apparently there's for those who remember, the Eagle Pond Nursing Home, which is no longer a nursing home, may become a transitional housing for the unhoused. And there is a possibility that that would add perhaps as many as 30 or 80 students to the district. So exciting things happening on the school front. We will talk. So we are anticipating having both Dr. Sanborn and who is the Cape Cod Tech superintendent, as well as Dr. Smith from the school district available for us on the 19th. I would recommend, and I'll be talking with you separately, that we focus, that we don't necessarily have to go through the formula, which is historically what has happened. In other words, you got the same message that you got from the select board presentation. Rather, it would be perhaps a good time working as part of our collaboration with Dennis is to perhaps look a little bit more closely at some of the questions that we might have on the per pupil detail. So I'll be talking with you about that. Our next scheduled meeting is next week, the 5th. So like I say, so the school committee meeting is on Monday. We will be meeting on the 5th. We will be doing DPW, which is sort of like a lot. So do not expect that to be a short session. We will, the week after that, the week of February 12th, we do have a placeholder for another meeting for the DPW if it needed to be extended. I would still like to keep that on the calendar because even if we don't extend it, potentially use that as some time to get a head start on our draft report to the town meeting. You know, in the past, we've always sort of ended up with with no time at the end. And so Mr. Perkins,
Professor.
the professor, will hopefully help us get that together. And then
I think I'm playing golf that day.
Yeah. And then and I say, so on the 19th will be the schools. And that should be pretty much, we got a couple of other small items that we have to wrap up, but I think we're at this point, in amazingly good shape.
Good going.
I'm going to have to be remote on the 19th.
What, I mean, that's
I
why,
have to find out how to do it. I can call on your cell phone.
somebody in your house knows how to do it.
I was gonna correct you. When you said February 5th, next week, I'm like, it's already February. That's crazy. It's just February. It's like Saturday's the 1st or something.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, okay.
February's ago.
Are there any other
Snowed like.
Any other committee members have items that they would like to bring up? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Nate, Raphael,
Aye.
Mr. Perkins,
Aye.
Melissa, Bob,
Yes.
I'm an aye as well. You know, we have to stop meeting like this.
No.
We like these meetings.
Thank you.
It's the budget.